In previous videos, as part of this series, we've created a new organisation called HomeTech, set up things like overbranding, and we've assigned a LearnDash group to it. And in this video, we're going to look at how we get users into the groups associated with this HomeTech organisation. And there are two ways that the plugin allows you to do this. The first is to create registration forms to allow learners to self-register and end up in the right groups. And the second is for you as an administrator to import users from a spreadsheet that the organisation might supply, and that again would automatically add them to the relevant groups and organisations. In this video, we're going to look at the first method, which is setting up registration forms. So what we're going to do first is hover over Organization Toolkit in the left-hand menu, choose registration forms, and what we'll see to start with is a list of registration forms that we already have created. And we've got one created for all of the other organizations we have set up already. So Eco Water, Discover, and Rapid Files all have a registration form associated with them. So first, let's have a look at what one of these looks like. So let's look at Discover's registration form. A member of the Discover organization would be given access to this via their organization, and they can see a registration form that allows them to either register a new account or register with an existing account. And if they did already have an account on the system, they could log in here and access the group that this registration form that would be linked with. More often than not, people would be coming to your site for the first time via registration forms, and here they would be asked to put in things like their first name, last name, email address. They would choose their own password, and this is usually good because it lets them get started straight away and there's no confusion around passwords being set for them. They get to choose their own, and they enter a license code here, which we'll come on to shortly. But that's sort of your gateway to prevent just anyone from accessing the site. Anyone who gets a registration form would be required to enter a certain code to be able to use it. The registration forms can be overbranded, as we see here, and it's just a nice straightforward way for people to be able to self-register. It means less administration for you because they handle it themselves, and they would register their own accounts. And in the past, we've seen that this method works really well. So we're going to create a new registration form for our HomeTech group and organisation. And to do this, we're going to click on Add New Registration Form. I'm going to call this HomeTech Registration. And let's go through the settings here one by one to talk you through them. So firstly, we choose an organisation associated with this registration form. And this will just be a drop down of the organisations that you currently have. And we are going to choose HomeTech. Now, the first option here is a status for the registration form. So what you might find is that you want to create a registration form, but you don't want people to use it straight away. And you have the option to make it active, as in registrations are permitted, or inactive, as in registrations aren't. We'll put this as active to start with, and people will be able to use that straight away. The first thing we see here is an introduction, and this is something that appears above the registration form fields. So if I switch back to the Discover one, it's this bit here. And I'm just going to put in here, welcome, please create an account below. So within this, you could add things like images and links. It's an editor here that you can customize that introduction for any given organization. And now we come on to licenses. So if you remember here, as a registrant, you'll be asked to put in a license code. This is where we set these up. So you can control, you've got full access to decide what these are. So if this was HomeTech 2022, for example, anyone who registers using this form would have to put in HomeTech 2022 to access it. And if they didn't, they wouldn't be able to get past it. No account would be created. And licenses have a few elements to them. Firstly, they control which group the registrant using this code would end up on. So what we want to do is put these into Home Tech December 2022, which was the group that we created in the previous video. So anyone who puts in that code as part of the registration form would end up on that group. The great thing about this is that one form could have multiple license codes which end up in different groups. So you don't need to create a new registration form for every group. You can have one for Home Tech, and then any group that you create within it, you can have a different code, and whenever the user uses it, it puts them into a different group. We can also set the number of available licenses. So you might have an arrangement with an organisation whereby they're allowed 25 of their staff or organisation members to be able to access your courses. And this is where you would set that. So each time someone logs in, that number would start to go down, and then it would become a redeemed license. And once that number hits 0, no more users using this particular code would be allowed access. It just helps you control the flow of users from that organisation. And once that gets to 0, or a low number, you might contact Home Tech and say, you're running low on numbers here, you might want to buy some more licenses. And that's when you can sell that. And if they buy 25 more, you can add that to it. So you've got full control over how many times each code is used. And like I say, once those are used, that will increment this redeemed licenses column here, and this number would drop down. The last field we have here is an option to redirect to a specific URL or web page address once they register. So what happens once someone registers is that they are logged into your site and normally just taken back to the home page. But you might not want to do that. You might want to redirect them to a certain URL on your site or a welcome page when they register. And by putting a URL in here, that would allow you to do this. Equally, you could link to a completely different website if you wanted, but that's a flexible field that you can use to redirect users to whatever page you like. I will leave that blank for now because what I want is this standard registration where they are logged in, it creates them an account, and they end up back on the home page of your site. So that's the licenses portion of it. If we scroll down, if you remember on the Discover form, we don't actually have any here, but you can enable certain custom registration form fields that are mainly for your own informational, your own company's use, but you might want to enable fields like telephone and addresses. And you've got the option to hide them entirely, show them as optional fields, or show them as required fields. And just as a demonstration here, I'll mix a few hidden and required, and those will appear when we create this new form. We've also got a terms and conditions link. So you might, as a company, have terms and conditions of your course that you want any registrants to agree to prior to creating an account. And if you do, put the URL of them here, and when the form is created, a tick box will be required. So just as an example here, I'm going to just put Google as the terms and conditions. I'm putting any old URL in there, and it'll show you what that looks like when the form is created. The final box here is the welcome email that would be sent to anyone who registers. And you might not want a registration email, in which case you can leave this blank. But if you do, you might have something like an email subject of welcome. It's great to have you here. And you might add a bit of information about what they would expect on your course and how to access it. So if you do populate these fields, anyone who registers would be sent that email. So once we've done all that, we can scroll back up and click on Publish. And our registration form is now created. So what I'm going to do is just copy the link for that into this new tab, and we'll have a look at the form that's been made. We can see that it has the home tech branding, which was configured in a previous video on the over branding video. And what I'm going to do, as I'm in a private tab here, is register a new account and show you how this works. So I'm just going to put test home tech user as the first name and last name, make up an email address, and you can see here, based on my selections within the custom fields, we have a few required and non-required fields here. So it's saying telephone is required, so I'm just going to put in a made-up one. Address line 1 isn't required, but I'll put something in anyway. And again, for the city, it's saying job titles required, so let's put something in there. As a registrant, I can choose my own password, so I'm just going to put something in here, and I'm asked to repeat it to make sure it's been typed properly. And what I'm being asked to do here is put in a license code, which I will just remind myself of. That was HomeTech 2022, so I'm going to use that and register with it. And I'm asked here as the registrant to accept the terms and conditions. And now I just click create my account. And straight away, I've been given an account now. If I go to all courses, it's all in the home tech branding, I'm enrolled onto the 3 courses that were given access to the group that I'm now enrolled onto. So the system now knows I'm in a home tech related group, the home tech December 22 group, and I am within the home tech organization, and straight away I can get started. If we go back to the registration forms here and then refresh the page, what we'll find is that under licenses, what was 25 licenses is now dropped to 24, and we can see that 1 license has been redeemed, and that was the registration that I just did. So we've now got a simple way for learners to be able to register into the home tech organization. You would give a link to that to home tech, and they would distribute it amongst their staff or organization members, and you would give them the code that their members would use to access it. In the next video, we're going to look at a different way of enrolling users, and that is to import them via a spreadsheet that the organization might provide to you.